Both of tonight's movies involve some fast-driving car chases, but unfortunately, neither film really seems in a huge hurry to go anywhere. This is Movie Night. Hello and welcome to Movie Night. I'm your host, Jonathan Paula. Watching all of these mediocre films so you don't have to. A far cry from 2010 Best Picture nominees we watched last week, tonight's films are your typical Hollywood adventures. They're kind of substandard, but hopefully enjoyable. The first of which is Due Date. This comedy road trip film starring Robert Downey Jr. and Zach Galifianakis went on to gross over 3 times its $65 million budget when it was released last November. In an almost overtly similar premise to John Hughes' classic Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Robert Downey Jr. stars as Peter, an uptight businessman who gets stuck with the socially inept Ethan, played by Galifianakis, a slacker goofball who dreams of making it big in Hollywood someday. After a string of increasingly bizarre events force them into each other's company for a cross-country road trip, this odd couple go on to annoy the hell out of each other for the remainder of the movie. While both men certainly have great on-screen chemistry and both submit decent enough performances, the big issue here is the character's likability. Whereas John Candy was a lovable character with a heart of gold in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Ethan is just as annoying as Peter complains he is, and Peter is pretty much a giant dick to him because of it, leaving the viewer not a lot of options as to who to root for. Between the outlandish situations they find themselves in, there are a few good jokes in this movie, but rarely did anything really make me laugh out loud. A scene where our protagonists accidentally brew the ashes of a dead man into a cup of coffee feels particularly trite, but the deadpan delivery of the line, "I'm sorry we drank your father," in the following scene is one of the funnier moments in the movie. Director Todd Phillips attempts to inject some emotional arcs into these characters by getting serious in the third act. But not only is it too little too late, it also feels very out of place given all the nonsense that preceded it. Fans of Galifianakis' role in The Hangover will undoubtedly find a lot to enjoy here, but Due Date takes far too many liberties in the realm of reality and never really succeeds in convincing us that these characters are genuine human beings anyone would care about. Due Date, sometimes funny, but often ridiculous. Well, that's what I thought of the film. Now let's see what you had to say about it in the YouTube comments. Here's the Rate-O-Matic now for Due Date. A 6 and a 7. This was an enjoyable movie, but it wasn't really fantastic either. I thought it was simply good. Most of you actually agreed, recognizing that despite some of its funnier moments, this film really isn't anything special. You scored it a cool. Now moving on to tonight's second film, Faster. Starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, this action revenge film was released just a few short months ago, barely making back its $24 million budget. Johnson stars as Driver, an ex-con who upon being released from prison immediately storms into an office building and murders a man in cold blood. The surprisingly fresh intensity in these opening scenes unfortunately fades as the movie progresses, but Johnson's attitude of grief and revenge stay on his unmovable face throughout. His acting isn't necessarily bad here, but because he's so quiet, there isn't much to work with. I honestly think he shoots more bullets than he does speak lines of dialogue here. As Faster progresses from scene to scene, we learn more about Driver's background and the reasoning behind his revenge killings. He's clearly a man on a mission, and for good reason. Unfortunately though, his character exhibits almost no emotional connection with the things he's doing. An early flashback sequence involving a bank heist car chase is a strong standout in the film, with some gritty editing that keeps everything exciting, even if the scene itself serves absolutely zero purpose to the rest of the film, save for illustrating that Driver is indeed capable of driving. Billy Bob Thornton shows up in this movie to play your stereotypical cop with a grudge and drug problem, but honestly he brings nothing to the screen, and his eventual outcome doesn't amount to much. In a film titled Faster, many scenes leisurely stroll past with very little action in them at all. Folks expecting an over-the-top action ride like The Transporter or Crank will be sorely disappointed. A brooding suspense thriller would be great too, but that would require some actual tension in any of the scenes. Instead though, this movie ends up being a very cold and uneventful revenge film with a few gunfight sequences and a single good car chase. If you're a fan of 70s-style gritty action films and don't mind watching 98 minutes of The Rock slowly executing people, this film may be entertaining. For me though, Faster was intensely unemotional and broodingly lethargic. Now that you've heard my review, let's read some of yours. Once again, the Rate-O-Matic, this time to rate Faster. A 4 and a 6. While this film opened with a few ferociously exciting scenes, it went downhill from there and barely maintained my attention. I thought it was meh. Although none of you were really impressed with this movie, Johnson's relentless murder spree was enough to win you over, and you thought it was good. But that does it for tonight's films, so now let's take a look at what's currently playing in theaters with some tweet critiques. Remember, if you're going to the movies this weekend, make sure to submit your Twitter review using the JPMN hashtag to have it featured on an upcoming episode. Next week, we'll be taking a look at Megamind, the animated superhero comedy film starring Will Ferrell that was a huge hit last November. And Morning Glory, the much-delayed dramedy film starring Rachel McAdams and Harrison Ford. As always, I encourage you to buy, rent, or download these films for next week's episode, and let me know what you think about them by voting in the polls below or by leaving me a comment review. Once again, my name is Jonathan Paula. Thank you for watching Movie Night. I hope to see you right back here next Friday.